A reading from the Gospel of Luke. On another Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and taught, and there was a man there whose right hand was withered. The scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would cure on the Sabbath, so that they might find an accusation against him. Even though he knew what they were thinking, he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Come and stand here." He got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to destroy it?" After looking around at all of them, he said to him, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with one another what they might do to Jesus. That's a curious story when you look at it in some detail. Obviously, the main thrust of the plot is our reaction to the Pharisees' fury that Jesus has healed somebody on the Sabbath. It's easy to miss the rather subtle challenge that Jesus throws out, which implies that either he can heal and bring life, or that the alternative is destruction. That's a curious turn of phrase, because actually the reality is simply either he heals the guy or he doesn't heal the guy. Where does the destruction come from? It's a clue, I think, that Luke sees in this incident something bigger than simply dealing with a withered hand. The man's lived with this condition for many years, we are given to understand, perhaps all of his life. And it isn't probably going to make any major difference to this man's life if, in a sense, he has to come back on Sunday to get the healing done. But Jesus talks about a stark choice of life or death, really. Helping, saving, curing, bringing life, or something which is destruction. That raises the stakes of this encounter in a way that we may not at first pick up. Jesus, in effect, is saying to the Pharisees, are you a force that is life-giving and therefore related to the mission that God has for all God's people, or are you a force for death and destruction? It's no wonder, perhaps, that the Pharisees are furious if, as I suspect was the case, they've picked up the full implication of Jesus' words. And the challenge to us in all our actions is to work out whether we are taking the side of life and of good and that side of a loving God, or whether our actions are actions that go against God's love, God's desire for healing and wholeness, whether our actions are a force for destruction. Jesus says to the Pharisees, there isn't really room to sit on the fence, to say it doesn't matter, to be neutral. Are you on the side of an affirming and loving God, or aren't you? I hope we hear that call and that choice, and we know how to act. Amen.